Hey guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about raids since it seems like there isn't much material on the internet to tell you some good tips and strats about just Pokemon raids in general. So I thought I'd show you a little bit what some of my sets are, um, and also in like the things that tend to work and the things that maybe work not as often. Um, First of all, I wanted to talk about the Berserker strat, which you've seen probably some videos about. Um, my conclusion on Berserker teams is that they are good. However, they are not as insanely good as some of the clickbaity videos seem to claim they are. You've probably seen this picture that people send on the flowchart that you should follow for Berserker raids. And basically it's a 3-turn thing, and like if you just do this 3 turns, you're good, or at least that's how the people who are sharing it tend to present it. But really, it's more complicated than that. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So the strat tends to be you use taunt first if you're the host, and everyone else uses screech to get him to -6. Then everyone uses attack up cheer, and then everyone except the host uses helping hand, and the host uses an iron head, and that's a one shot. And the item is always metal coat, which I currently have. That is not nearly as consistent as people say. First of all, if you screech 3 times and you put his defense as -6, it seems like the boss is more likely to do the action where they remove all debuffs from themselves, which means all your screeches were useless. And same with attack up cheers. If you boost your attack a lot, it seems like they're more likely to remove not only buffs but also abilities from you. And obviously, Berserker relies on his ability a lot. So that's not as reliable. And once your ability is down, now you're actually in a losing situation. So in Berserker raids, what I've found works a little bit better is to put yourself in a winning situation as fast as possible. So if the boss is not very physically defensive or is weak to steel, so it's super effective, you can carry a choice band instead of a metal coat on the host, and everyone else just uses white lens screech because screech is not perfect accuracy. Uh, and you just use 3 screeches, and then the other guy waits a little bit, hits Iron Head, and that is a one shot a lot of the time. And even if it's not a one shot, being stuck on Iron Head is not that bad because you can still use cheers. So the host can just keep using Iron Head, get the terrestrialization pretty fast. Everyone else can keep hitting, and the first attack will have done so much damage that even if the team dies, you can still clear it. That's another thing. If you take 3 turns, Berserker is not the best tank in the world, so it's likely that he will die, that teammates will die during those turns, and therefore your strategy kind of goes out the shitter a little bit. But I would say it's still a pretty good team comp if you're just a little bit more flexible and stop relying so much on the flowchart, like a gospel. Other than that, I would say use your box legendary. It's just really good. Why? Well, because his stats are ridiculous. This is fully EV'd into special attack and HP with modest nature. Um, and honestly, for most raids, even if the raid boss hits you super effectively, sometimes that's like 25% of your health or 30 of your health because you're just so tanky. So if I just have like one other person doing about as much damage as I am, and 2 people who don't die and sometimes use heal cheers, it's usually fine. Like I can even go choice specs, spam Dragon Pulse with even if it's not super effective, just spam Dragon Pulse to get the terrestrialization so I can break the barrier faster, and the damage is enough. Like you don't need super effective damage. In general, I would say super effective damage is worse than resisting the boss's damage. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, another really good mon is Iron Valiant. It's specifically good with Miraidon because Miraidon sets up electric terrain, and Iron Valiant benefits from electric terrain from Quark Drive. Mine is physical. It's not the best necessarily to go physical. The moves are not as great, but it's still really good. And also my other good mons are special, so for for a special tank, this is better. You don't need like for example, Brick Break I think is better than Close Combat because even though the damage is much lower, lowering your defense, like dying is the worst thing that can happen in a raid. You just lose so much time. So it's better to just focus on keep doing damage, get that Terra Sterilization in so you do even more damage, and the barrier is not a problem as much. Uh, Fury Cutter, if it's super effective, this can also be used on Scissor. Fury Cutter is actually ridiculous, especially with a wide lens. You just start doing so much damage after a while. Like at the beginning, it seems like you're useless, but 4 turns in, you are doing so much damage. It's crazy. Um, but yeah, I would say thing to take into consideration is your Terra type. Because, for example, my Iron Valiant, when I'm using it against like Dragon Terras, for example, it's like, alright, I'll spam my Spirit Break, super effective, right? But that kind of sucks because if I Terra to fighting, now the barrier just completely cripples my damage. So you can just Spirit Break and then Terra, fighting, and then it's better to use Brick Break. Ideally, you would have one Iron Valiant Terra fighting, one Iron Valiant Terra Fairy, which is something I will tried to do. I think I have another Iron Valiant somewhere. Uh, yeah, here. And this one's Terra Fairy, so I'll probably do something like that. And then finally, Golden Go. This one's not as reliable, but it's just really good against stuff like Braloom or people who use Taunt. Like, the boss seems to get really confused. Like, he just uses Taunt on me, and he's like, I'm immune to it because of my ability. And he's like, well, he's not taunted. I gotta taunt him again. So I've gotten taunted like 6 times by the boss in a raid with Golden Go. So I never had to worry about damage. Uh, Obviously here Metal Sound or any of these can be replaced with the move Make It Rain, which is really good. But I was doing a Ghost type raid, so I had no need for that. Um, and yeah, in general, I would just say focus on being able to survive more than doing crazy damage. Like someone who's strong on a stab, on a terrestrialized stab, which isn't super effective, even just neutral effective, that's enough damage. You just need to survive. And so sometimes choice items can be pretty good. For the reason I said that you can still use cheers. Just focus on not dying. If you're not sure what to do, focus on taking a tanky mon that resists the boss Pokemon's original stabs, and then with that, it should be good enough to at least let other people take care of it. Because if you're dying, that's the easiest way to lose a raid. So yeah, that's my experience with it. I've been raiding quite a bit, not as much as some people, but I've just not seen much discussion on what some good strats are for for raids in general. Like people seem to value boosting a lot, like bulk up, nasty plot, that sort of stuff. The boss really likes to just remove your buffs if you buff too much. So I wouldn't rely on that too much. The more turns you have, the better. The earlier you get to Terra, the better, because the barrier is the big problem. Like, so many raids, you have 90% of the time left and you get to the barrier, but then you don't break the barrier, and that's just the end. You just keep dying. Suddenly you have 70%, 50%, 20% of the time left, and you just don't have enough time to kill it. So if you get 3 attacks in, which, by the way, I am almost certain of this. I think I checked, but I'm almost certain, correct me if I'm wrong, that for terrestrializing, you need to use 3 attacks, not 3 moves. So if I use Metal Sound, that doesn't count towards terrestrialization. Meanwhile, if I use 3 Shadow Balls, I might be doing a little bit less damage than Metal Sound into 2 Shadow Balls, but now I have my Terra, so I can break through the barrier. Um, So yeah, basically the big notes are focus more on being tanky and resisting the opponent's move than doing damage. Super effective moves are not as big of a deal, and if you're super effective but on a type that is not your Terra type, that is not as good because you need to Terra. At least someone needs to Terra. I would say ideally two people need to Terra to break through that barrier. Anyway, that's it.